presentation comes up, hi, this is Mihir Joshi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really grateful to be standing here in front of my friends, colleagues, and CISO communities. Okay. So my today's topic is cybersecurity mesh architecture, which we say is secure uniformity and interoperability. How are we going to start? Our presentation would be, we'll start with the introduction, defensive capability stagnation, that why do we need cybersecurity mesh, concept architecture and exercise, how do we get there, and summary. Now, what is cybersecurity mesh? Cybersecurity mesh was a term coined by Gartner in 2022. We all know what is cybersecurity. Let's define what is mesh. Mesh is a net. Consider mesh as a safety net where you have the knots connected to each other. Why do we have those knots connected? So that we create the safety net. Consider those knots as your cybersecurity solutions that you implement across your organization, starting from top to bottom. Starting from the perimeter, email security gateway, web security gateway, your endpoints, your servers, your identity and access management. The current problem is all these security solutions, they are working in silos. Yes, at some moment of time, we do have distributed threat intelligence, but we do not configure the failing layers. When I say a failing layers, we as a CISOs, we as a information security professionals, we have always thought about information security as layered defense approach. The problem with that approach is that layer one is failing, layer two takes over. But are we correcting the layer one? Do we have a mechanism to correct the layer one so that during the next attack, layer one is the layer which is protecting it? Cybersecurity mesh is all about that, the interoperability between different security solutions. It builds on the strategy of integrating security solutions in a way where the data is shared in a collaborative manner. It consists of 4 layers. The first layer is your security intelligence and analytics. Consider that as a part of SIM or SOAR. The second layer is about your consolidated dashboards. When I say consolidated dashboards, that can be very well integrated with the very first layer, which is security, analytics, and intelligence. The most 2 important layers are your distributed identity fabric, where zero trust and your consolidated policy and posture management plays a very important role. Now, why do we need consolidated policy and posture management? Not only to share the intelligence, but also the IOA. Just like as we say, IOC ka zamana gaya. Now it's all about IOAs. The second is the distributed identity fabric, where not only 2FA, but also we need to have an adaptive intelligence. So let's focus on the keywords that we have learned when it comes to the cybersecurity mesh definition. Scalability and interoperability, distributed TI and open policy framework, centralized policy and posture, and decentralized IAM. Okay. So before we start with the concept exercise, let's understand that why do we need cybersecurity mesh? We have layered defenses, we have n number of security solutions, we have SOC, we have red teaming exercise, we have vulnerability management and policy, and whatnot. Then why do we need cybersecurity mesh? Why another term coined by Gartner suddenly that we need a cybersecurity mesh? Somewhere, we as an information security professional, we have reached to a stagnation that ab defend kya kare? What we should do? We have n number of security solutions. If I am not over exaggerating, each and every organization must be having minimum 8 to 15 of the security solution, creating more complexity, right? The first problem is a central point of governance. That's why the people are running behind the decentralized form, which is a blockchain, where we end up solving a Byzantine's problem. The second is focus on the layered approach. Layer 1 fails, layer 2 takes over. Layer 3 fails, layer 4 takes over. Who's going to repair the layers which are failing? Layered approach or a defense in depth was a term coined by Gartner exactly 10 years ago in 2012. Now Gartner, after 10 years, they have coined a term cybersecurity mesh. Why are we following the same decade-old concept or an architecture to protect from the attackers who are coming up with different attacks and techniques every second? Paradigm shift from centralized network to a distributed network. COVID is the best example. Now we have our users, we have our applications, we have our data everywhere. It's outside the perimeter boundary. Working in silos. Just like we defenders, eventually as an information security professional, once we are out of this room, we are going to back to our organization, we are going to do our work in silos. Definitely we are going to collaborate within the organization, but we do not collaborate outside. Just like we do not collaborate, our security solutions don't collaborate. Our security solutions are working in silos. And then we keep on bragging about it, saying कि यार attacks इतने successful क्यों हो रहे हैं? Because they collaborate, they are well organized. We have to ask ourselves, are our security solutions well organized? Due to this capability stagnation, defensive capability stagnation, we need a cybersecurity mesh. Okay. This is a concept. We have to understand the concept. Before we go to this particular slide, before we discuss this slide, each and every table, they have the concept exercise. Understand the concept, and then we are going to understand the scenario. You as a team, each table is a team, you have to design a concept or an architecture where you have to decide which security solutions will be integrated for scenario number 2, as you already have over there, right? Before we start, there are no right answers, there are no wrong answers. It's a concept. Every organization must be having a different security solution stack. We have to understand the concept. We have to go back, create the inventory of your security solution stack, and try to integrate with each other, right? Let's take this scenario. A very ideal scenario on the basis of the MITRE attack, initial access. An email is sent where an employee receives an email with a URL connecting to a SharePoint site with URLs to download further documents from Google Drive. 95% of email security gateway is going to miss this. The reason behind that is there is no malicious attachment. There is no malicious URL connecting to any of the malicious website. There is no CNC connection. Google Drive documents might pull additional pieces of malware. Okay? Once complete file is created, Slack is used as a CNC to exfiltrate data. Data is exfiltrated from user endpoints to a OneDrive accounts managed by hacker. In this scenario, if you'll see, a threat actor is just using SharePoint, Google Drive, and Slack, which are the very valid technology stack every organizations have. Now, what would be the ideal CSMA? Your email security gateway doesn't recognize an attack and the email is delivered. Once the email is delivered, web gateway recognizes anomalous behavior during the downloads from the Google Drive. So the email is delivered to an employee with a SharePoint link. Once the SharePoint link is clicked, it is redirected to a Google Drive to download some pieces of malware contents where it will be scanned by the web security gateway. Further, with an integrated DLP, definitely data exfiltration is going to block according to the policy. If there is an execution, your endpoint EDR NGAV will execute any execution attempt and block the process execution. The first 4 points, they are still working in silos. The 5th point, during the entire course, different IOCs are generated and shared across EDR, NGAV, ESG, and WSG. So what's happening here is WSG has created some kind of hashes, some kind of URLs and domains. The execution process from the EDR, where the patterns are generated, those patterns are shared with WSG. The same is being shared by to the ESG as well, right? ESG, Email Security Gateway, on receiving malicious patterns, what it does, it generates a search mechanism. It's going to search that in an entire organization, who all the employees have received this particular email with a SharePoint URL. And it's going to create a risk posture of those number of users. Once ESG have the list of those users, what are they going to do? They are going to say that out of 10 users, 5 users have clicked on that particular URL, right? Post which, there is a trap mechanism where the ESG is going to send a signal on the user email inboxes to delete those emails. But what about those 5 users who have already clicked it? The IAM comes into picture. Your distributed identity fabric. What it's going to do? It will check whether those 5 users are connected via a VPN or via a VDI access. If they are connected, it's going to send a signal to EDR to check the security posture of the device in real time while the connection is on. Post receiving the posture rating, say for example, the risk appetite of the organization when it comes to the zero trust assessment is 85. And since those 5 users have clicked the link, their security posture is around 75. That would be the moment where it's going to disconnect or terminate all the user sessions. The IPs, hashes, URLs, and the IOAs will be updated at the parameter level. This is an ideal CSMA solution where all your layers, despite of failing, they are repairing themselves. At the same time, according to the risk posture, according to the security posture, it's going to decide whether this particular user will be allowed to be connected unless and until the security posture gets to the 85, to the score of 85 or 90. Or if they are already connected, real-time assessment of the posture while the connection is still on and terminating the connection. So this is an ideal CSMA scenario where your security solutions are talking to each other. They are sharing the intelligence, which we call as a cross-domain intelligence. At the same time, not only IOCs, but IOA as well. With that understanding, there is second scenario on your table. Discuss among yourself, where A to H are the security solutions. You have 10 minutes. Just note down that according to the scenario 2, and according to you guys, what all security solutions must be interconnected to each other and why. So there is a sheet over there. So what you have to do is understand the scenario. There are the security solutions with 4 layers of CSMA. Just connect the dots. No right answers, no wrong answers. Connect the dots, and you have 10 minutes. As I told you, there are no right and wrong answers, so it's perfectly fine. Okay. The final outcome should be that when we go out from this room, when we are in our organization busy with day-to-day operations and work, it is very important that we look at our security stack, ask ourselves that will we be able to integrate, and what kind of an integration will be required, right? So before we go on other slides, okay. This was a scenario, ongoing attack on critical app, IPs getting blocked according to OWASP rule, multiple alerts on SIM dashboard. Okay, so WEF, it provides an IP, attacks originating details to ESG, Email Security Gateway. Normally in the current scenario, what we do is, WAF पे अटैक हुआ, अटैक हो रहा है, स्टॉप हो रहा है, खत्म हो गई बात. Okay? Now understand from the CSMA concept, in a more idealistic world, अगर वेंडर ने बोला कि चलो API हम लोग दे रहे इंटीग्रेट करो, which at this very moment of time it seems impossible for the vendors to provide the open policy framework, which is an open APIs. But let's hope for the best. WAF provided an IP details to ESG. Now when it comes to the email security gateway, there are multiple modules. The very first module is the IP reputation. Email security gateway is going to check whether the IPs that were attacking my critical application, were those IPs can be seen on the ESG gateway. वो IP से email अंदर आए हैं कि नहीं, right? Any successful delivery of any email originating from those IP addresses, the attack scenario will be taken as per the scenario 1, क्योंकि वो IP से आपके email अंदर आ चुका है. So the scenario 1 that we discussed, we are going to follow that CSMA piece. WAF will trigger the same intelligence to the perimeter defense to block those IPs for ports apart from 80 and 443. Because WAF is going to block attacks only pertaining to 80 and 443. Okay. Integrated endpoint posture management will trigger checks on incoming remote workforce connections. Whatever the IP address you are seeing on the WAF side, are those IPs trying to connect to your VPN or to your Citrix environment? Any login attempts from these IPs will be blocked. Established connection will be terminated, right? Security analytics will trigger scan on successful outgoing connections. So what happens is that all the incoming connections are getting blocked. But while we are doing this, there is a possibility that attacks that were happening on port 80 and 443, some of the attacks got bypassed from the perimeter firewall on other ports. The connection has been established. So while we are doing this, security analytics will check that, hey, we have received this set of IP addresses which got blocked. At the WAF side, do we see any outgoing connections on other ports? Yes. Once we have the outgoing connection, you'll be having the details, the asset details. Those asset details were responsible for establishing outgoing connection to the IP addresses which got blocked on the WAF. Now, what is the security posture of those asset details who are establishing the security connection? We will be triggering a scan rule to your scanners. Every organization have the scanners, Nessus, Qualys, etc., etc. We are going to trigger a rule on those scanners to scan those assets who are responsible to establish outgoing connections. Once done, we will have the scan reports. According to the scan reports, we are going to trigger an alert to your host-based IPS system and to your network-based IPS system that these are the patterns that needs to be blocked. Now, the second layer of CSMA says consolidated posture management, where we have to apply rules, we have to make changes in the configurations on the fly. Sample configuration changes, apart from blacklisting those IPs at ESG, WSG and firewalls, we have to do a post scanning. Auto remediation patterns that will be triggered at the endpoint. The established connection from the end user will be terminated, right? And validated for any anomalies. So this would be an ideal CSMA. Now, go back to what we are doing when we see a WAF attack. We as in everybody, including me. WAF pe attack block ho raha hai, we are good to go, right? This you can expect after a year or after 2 years, when you have an open policy framework, the amount of data which cybersecurity mesh can generate, it's like, there is no measurement, but definitely it's something to learn from, right? So going back to the previous slide, where's the button to go to the previous slide? Which one? This one? The black, the red one? Okay. Now how do we get there? First, just like we have IP inventory, servers inventory, or laptops inventory, we need to have security solutions inventory as well. Once we have the security solutions inventory, it is very important to understand how the security solutions work. Just by deploying EDR or just by deploying next generation antivirus and anti-malware doesn't mean that you are protected. You have to understand the features. Process hooking hota hai ki nahi? Memory injection hota hai ki nahi? Do they prevent from the memory injection? When there is a process hooking, when the process is hooked by a malicious connection, what exactly the next features kicks in to terminate the process and to provide the attack graph? We need to understand the security features of the solution. Once you understand, you have to understand the asset connection. From the point 1 and 2 above, what are we going to do is take one attack path, just like we had these scenarios. From the lateral movement, take any one attack path, sit down, understand that attack path, and then out of the security solution stack, note down which security solution you will be able to integrate. Not necessarily you will be able to integrate all the security solutions unless and until the organization using one vendor with all the security solutions from top to bottom. Then definitely the interoperability is possible because it's from the one vendor. But having only one vendor providing all the security solution from top to bottom is giving a power which is a central point of governance, which is not good for us. At this point, we'll have at least 2 to 3 solutions. Connect with the OEMs and ask them, Do you have an open policy framework? Do we have the APIs so that I can connect my WAF to my perimeter gateway? I can connect my email security gateway to my web security gateway and share the entire IOA patterns with NGAV and EDR. Now, next new implementation or replacement of any existing one, have this particular thing that whether your solution is CSMA supported. Okay, this has to be a part of the tech evaluation criteria. Now what we learned, the summary is, it's a concept. You do not have any tools, you do not have anything just to implement. It's a concept, it's a framework, right? It's going to evolve. Since it's focusing on interoperability, the collaboration becomes a central point. Working in silos is not working for us, not for the defenders. We have to stop working in silos. Let our security solution talk to each other. Okay? Open API framework is the key. Many of the security solutions are providing the open APIs. Slowly and gradually, if I'm not over exaggerating, around 20% of security solutions are enabling or providing us the APIs where you'll be able to connect. Next time when we try to address one specific risk, do not address saying that, okay, this particular risk has been mitigated, the residual risk is low. Addressed with a bigger picture in mind, that how are you going to interconnect? Just by deploying a new technology solution, just because XYZ organization are implementing it, we should also implement it. It's not a right approach. The correct approach is, if you have the security solution stack, we have to reduce the complexity. The moment we reduce the complexity, the visibility increases. Okay? Let's focus on reducing the attack paths, narrowing the attack surface, not increasing the attack surface. Let's focus on narrowing the blast radius analysis, not increasing the blast radius analysis. Okay? Thank you so much for listening so patiently. Really grateful to be standing here in front of you.